The night my brother disappeared, the corn was high enough to swallow a man whole. It's been 3 years since Tyler walked into those fields and never came back. 3 years of searching, of police reports, of my mother's tears drying up like creek beds in August heat. 3 years of knowing, deep in the marrow of my bones, that something in those stalks took him. I still remember the last time I saw him. Ty stood on the porch of our family farmhouse near Belle Prairie, Mississippi, sweat beading on his forehead despite the evening breeze. "Just gonna check on that weird rustling near the south fence," he'd said, grabbing the old mag light from the hook by the door. "Probably just coyotes after the chickens again." That mag light was the only thing we ever found. It was waiting for us at the edge of the cornfield, its beams still burning bright, pointing toward the darkness like an accusation. The old-timers in Chickasaw County whispered about our land even before we lost Tyler. The Henderson farm had always been different, they said. The soil too rich, the crops too bountiful in bad years. Great-grandpa Joseph bought these 300 acres dirt cheap back in 1932, during the worst of the Depression. The previous owner, Elijah Tate, died under what the local newspaper called mysterious circumstances, though my grandpa let slip once that Tate was found stretched out in his own field, eyes and mouth packed with soil, roots growing between his fingers. We ignored the stories. Farmers can't afford superstition, Dad always said. We had good land and we worked it hard. End of story. After Tyler vanished, Dad changed. He started leaving offerings at the edge of the cornfield. Small things at first, tobacco, whiskey, coins. Then larger things, livestock. He'd slaughter a chicken or rabbit at dusk, leave the blood to soak into the earth. I caught him once, mumbling words I couldn't understand, his face stretched tight with desperation. 2 weeks later, he walked into that same field, just like Tyler had. Unlike Tyler, we found Dad. He was sitting against the old oak tree in the center of the property, peaceful-like, except for the dirt packed down his throat and the corn silk threaded through his eyelids. I should have sold the land then. Should have run as far from Belle Prairie as my truck could take me. But instead, I stayed. Partly because the farm was all Mom and I had left. Mostly because, and I know how crazy this sounds, I still felt Tyler out there somewhere, moving between the rows on moonless nights. 3 weeks after we buried Dad, I found the rules. They were scratched into the underside of the old oak's largest branch, only visible when the sun hit it just right at dawn. 12 rules, carved in what looked like a mixture of English and symbols I couldn't decipher. Below them, in fresher cuts that couldn't have been more than a few months old, were my father's initials. It took me weeks to translate the full list, using some of Dad's old books and help from Dr. Mayfield, the anthropology professor from Ole Miss who'd once stayed with us while studying local folklore. The rules were clear, specific, and terrifying in their implications, but they offered something I desperately needed, a way to survive this land. So I followed them. And for 3 years, I've managed to keep breathing. But last night, something changed. I found a 13th rule, freshly carved, the wood still weeping sap, and beside it, scratched in my brother's handwriting, a message that's chilled me to my core. I'm coming home, Ethan. Don't trust what looks like me. Hello, viewers. If you wish your stories or experiences to be narrated by me, share them on our own subreddit, which you can join from the description below. I will pick the stories from the community and narrate them, and every once in a while, we will host a 3-hour story compilation. Morning comes too damn fast on a farm, even one that might be cursed. I was up before first light, same as always, pulling on my worn Carhartt overalls and the Mississippi State cap Tyler left behind. The 13th rule had kept me awake most of the night, my mind churning over what it could mean. But cows need milking, whether you've slept or not. I made coffee in the kitchen, the same kitchen where Mom had taught us to snap beans and roll biscuit dough. She'd moved to her sister's place in Tupelo after Dad died. Couldn't bear to look at those cornfields anymore. Can't say I blame her. She calls every Sunday, asks when I'm going to sell this godforsaken place and join the living again. If only she knew I was staying for those who weren't living anymore. Through the window over the sink, I could see the old oak tree standing sentinel at the center of our property. The rules tree, I called it now. The morning light wouldn't hit it right for another hour or so, but I knew those 12, now 13, commands by heart. I pulled the worn moleskin notebook from my back pocket and flipped it open to the first page, where I'd written them all down. Some mornings I read them aloud, like a prayer or a ward. Today felt like one of those mornings. Rule 1, never harvest after sunset or before sunrise. Simple enough. Night was when the land got hungry. Rule 2, if the crows gather on the fence posts in groups of 3, don't go into the fields that day. I'd learned this one the hard way. Lost 2 good farm hands from Pontotoc who'd ignored my warnings. Officially, they quit. Unofficially, I found Vernon's work boot by the irrigation ditch, filled with dark soil and tiny seedlings. Rule 3, always leave an offering at the south fence on the first day of each month. Tobacco, whiskey, or blood, nothing less. Dad's rules had been more specific about this. The offering had to be your own blood, just a few drops, mixed with Elijah Tate's favorite brand of tobacco, Lucky Strike, and a splash of corn whiskey. Not the cheap stuff either. I used Maker's Mark. Rule 4, if you hear your name called from the cornfield, ignore it. It's not anyone you know. This one had nearly broken me last summer when I heard Tyler's voice, clear as day, calling for help around dusk. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled, forcing myself to walk back to the house. Rule 5, the scarecrow in the north field must be faced east before sunset and west before sunrise. This scarecrow had been there since before my time, its burlap face weathered beyond recognition. I'd tried replacing it once. The new one was shredded by morning, and the old one back on its post, facing the wrong way deliberately, like a warning. Rule 6, if the well water runs red, do not drink from it or use it for 3 days. This had happened twice. Both times, the local news reported unusual animal deaths in neighboring farms. Rule 7, never remove anything from the oak tree, not even a leaf or acorn. The oak dropped plenty of both. I raked them carefully, burned them right where they fell. Rule 8, if you find a perfect ear of corn, one without a single missing kernel, bury it immediately, husk and all. These perfect ears appeared rarely, maybe once a harvest. They looked too perfect, the kernels sometimes arranged in patterns that hurt my eyes to look at directly. Rule 9, when the cicadas go silent in summer, go inside and lock all doors and windows until they sing again. The silence of cicadas in Mississippi summer is more unsettling than any horror movie soundtrack. Their sudden quiet feels like the world holding its breath before something terrible happens. Rule 10, never plant anything but corn in the south 20 acres. Dad had tried soybeans there once when I was a kid. The crop failed spectacularly, but not before half the plants formed pods that looked disturbingly like tiny screaming faces. Rule 11, if a stranger asks for water, give it freely, but never invite them inside. We'd get the occasional hiker or lost driver out on County Road 813. I kept sealed water bottles on the porch for just such occasions. Rule 12, what walks between the rows after midnight belongs to the land. Let it be. I'd seen shapes moving through the cornfield on moonlit nights. tall, elongated figures that didn't move quite right. I kept the curtains drawn after dark. And now, Rule 13. When he returns, burn what he brings. Don't wait. Don't question. Don't look inside. Below it, those words in Tyler's handwriting that made my skin crawl. I'm coming home, Ethan. Don't trust what looks like me. The coffee had gone cold in my hands. Outside, the sun was hitting the oak tree just right, making the carvings stand out in sharp relief. And beneath the tree, something that hadn't been there when I first looked out the window. A dark figure, standing perfectly still, facing the house. I set the mug down carefully, grabbed my shotgun from beside the door, and stepped onto the porch. The figure hadn't moved, but I could see it more clearly now. It was tall and thin, dressed in what looked like my brother's old flannel shirt and jeans. As I raised the gun, it lifted a hand in greeting, and I caught a glimpse of its face. It was Tyler, and it was smiling too wide. I didn't lower the shotgun. Whatever stood beneath that oak tree might have been wearing my brother's skin, but the way it held itself, too still, like it was remembering how to stand, told me it wasn't Tyler. Not really. That's far enough, I called out, voice steadier than my hands. The thing that looked like Tyler tilted its head at an angle just slightly wrong, that too wide smile never faltering. Hey, little brother, it called back, using Tyler's voice, the exact cadence and drawl that had teased me through childhood. That how you greet family after 3 years? A mockingbird started up somewhere nearby, its morning song cutting through the heavy air. The thing's eyes flicked toward the sound, too quick, like a lizard tracking prey. You're not my brother, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, doubt crept in. It looked exactly like him. The sandy hair curling over his ears the way Mom could never get him to cut. The small scar above his right eyebrow from when I'd accidentally hit him with a baseball when he was 12. It even had his slight bow-legged stance, legacy of a rodeo accident at the Chickasaw County Fair when he was 17. The thing laughed, Tyler's laugh, loud and unrestrained. Course I am. Just been away a while. It took a step forward, then stopped when I raised the shotgun higher. Easy, Ethan. I know I've got some explaining to do. In my pocket, the moleskin with the rules felt suddenly heavy. Rule 13. When he returns, burn what he brings. Don't wait. Don't question. Don't look inside. But I couldn't see that it had brought anything. Its hands were empty, hanging loosely at its sides. "Where have you been?" I asked, not lowering the gun. My eyes scanned its body, looking for whatever it might have brought back. "Around," it said vaguely, looking past me at the farmhouse. "Place looks good. You've been keeping up with everything." Its eyes lingered on the porch, where I'd repaired the steps last spring. "Mom still here?" "She's in Tupelo, with Aunt Susan." I didn't mention Dad. If this really was Tyler, he'd want to know what happened. If it wasn't, well, I didn't want to give it more information than necessary. It nodded, that smile finally fading. "Good. That's good." It shifted its weight and gestured toward the house. "Mind if I come in? Been walking all night. Could use some coffee." Rule 11 flashed in my mind. If a stranger asks for water, give it freely but never invite them inside. This wasn't exactly asking for water, and it wasn't exactly a stranger. The rules hadn't prepared me for this gray area. "I can bring some out to you," I said carefully. "You can sit on the porch steps." Something flickered across its face. Annoyance, maybe, or hunger, before it settled back into Tyler's easygoing expression. "Sure, little brother. Whatever makes you comfortable. I backed toward the house, never taking my eyes or gun off it. Once inside, I set the shotgun against the wall within easy reach and poured coffee with shaking hands. Through the window, I could see it still standing there, not having moved toward the porch at all. It was staring at the cornfield now, head cocked like it was listening to something. When I came back out with the coffee, it had finally moved to sit on the bottom porch step. I placed the mug on the step above it and retreated. "You don't trust me," it said. Not a question. It picked up the mug, inhaled the steam, and took a sip without blowing to cool it first. Tyler always did that too. Had a mouth like asbestos. "Would you?" After 3 years of nothing. I leaned against the porch railing, keeping distance between us. "No calls, no letters. Mom thought you were dead." "I was," it said simply, and my blood ran cold. It looked up at me, and for a moment, its eyes seemed darker, deeper. "In a way." "What's that supposed to mean?" It shrugged, Tyler's familiar gesture. "Means what it means." I walked into that field and something happened. Took me a long time to find my way back. It took another sip of coffee. "Missed your brewing, though. Gas station stuff doesn't compare." I studied it carefully. Everything about its appearance was Tyler, down to the smallest detail. But there was something fundamentally wrong in its movements, like it was operating Tyler's body without the instruction manual. "What happened that night?" I asked. "When you disappeared?" It set the coffee down and looked out toward the fields, now golden in the morning light. "I heard something moving out there. Thought it was coyotes or maybe that Fisher boy trespassing again." It rubbed its hands together, a nervous tic Tyler had picked up from Dad. But it wasn't. It was something else. Something from under the land. A chill ran through me despite the warming day. Under the land? This farm sits on old ground, Ethan. Older than the county, older than Mississippi itself. It turned back to me, and for just a heartbeat, I swore its face rippled, like heat waves over asphalt. There was a time before corn grew here, before people, the things that lived here then. They're still around, just deeper down. And they took you? More like, they changed me. It smiled again, and I noticed how it never showed its teeth. Tyler had always had a toothy grin. Showed me things. Time moves different down there. 3 years different? Feels longer to me. It stood abruptly, and I tensed. "Look, I get that you're freaked out, but I'm back now, and I brought you something." My hand instinctively moved toward the shotgun as it reached into its back pocket. Rule 13 thrummed in my head like a warning bell. The thing pulled out a small cloth bundle tied with what looked like dried corn husks, about the size of a baseball, wrapped in what I recognized with a jolt as a piece of Tyler's old Tupelo high t-shirt. "What is that?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "A gift," it said, holding it out. "From down below. It'll help protect the farm, keep the soil rich." When I didn't move to take it, it placed the bundle on the step and backed away. "You don't have to use it now. Just keep it safe. You'll know when it's time." Rule 13. Burn what he brings. Don't wait. Don't question. Don't look inside. "I need to check the cattle," I said, which wasn't a lie. The herd did need tending. "You can wait here if you want." "Mind if I wash up?" it asked. "Been traveling a long time. Could use your shower." "Inside the house." It wanted inside. "Water's running to the old wash house," I lied. The small building behind the main house had been converted to storage years ago, but it didn't know that. "Towels in the cabinet. Might be some of your old clothes in the dresser out there too." It nodded, seeming satisfied. "Thanks. I'll be here when you get back." It looked toward the south field, then back at me. "Don't be too long, though. We have catching up to do. I grabbed my shotgun and backed down the porch steps, giving it wide berth. The bundle sat where it had left it, innocent-looking yet menacing. As I headed toward the barn, I pulled out my phone and dialed the only person who might understand. "Doctor, Mayfield, it's Ethan Henderson. Something's happened. I need your help with the rules." Behind me, I felt its eyes on my back, and somewhere in the cornfield something rustled despite the absence of wind. Dr. Alton Mayfield agreed to come out to the farm that afternoon. "Don't do anything with whatever it brought you," he'd warned over the phone, his academic tone unable to hide his alarm. "And for God's sake, Ethan, don't invite it inside your house." The cattle were restless when I reached the pasture. Usually docile Herefords bunched together at the far end of the field, as far from the corn as possible. Even Bessie, our oldest milk cow who'd normally amble up for head scratches, kept her distance, eyes rolling white at the edges. "They know something's wrong too, don't they?" I murmured, checking that the water trough was full. One of the young bulls pawed at the earth, snorting nervously. I didn't blame them. The morning sun was climbing higher, promising another sweltering Mississippi day. As I walked back toward the barn, I detoured slightly to visit Mom's old garden patch. The tomato plants I'd put in last month were already withered. They always died, no matter what I did. Rule 10. Never plant anything but corn in the south 20 acres. The garden wasn't technically in the south field, but close enough, apparently. From this vantage point, I could see the thing that looked like Tyler. It had moved to the wash house as suggested, but instead of going inside, it was circling the building slowly, one hand trailing along the weathered boards, head tilted like it was listening to the wood. It hadn't noticed me watching yet. I ducked into the barn, pulled out my phone again, and called Mom. She deserved to know what was happening, even if I couldn't tell her everything. "Ethan? Everything all right, honey?" Her voice brought an unexpected lump to my throat. "You never call this early." "Everything's fine, Mom." I lied, keeping my voice low. "Just, has anyone called you today? About Tyler?" The silence on the other end lasted a beat too long. "What about Tyler?" Her voice had sharpened, a mother's instinct detecting trouble. "Nothing," I said quickly. "Just thought I saw someone who looked like him in town yesterday. Got me thinking. Oh, Ethan." The disappointed hope in her voice made me wince. "You need to stop this, honey. It's been 3 years. The sheriff said." "I know what Sheriff Dawkins said." I cut in, harsher than intended. The official theory was that Tyler had wandered into the woods bordering our property, maybe fallen into the Tombigbee River. I just thought I should ask. If Tyler was back, don't you think he'd call his mama first thing? She sighed, the sound of a woman who'd grieved too much. "I'm coming down this weekend to help you pack." This again. "Mom, I'm not selling the farm." "That place has taken enough from this family," she said firmly. "Your daddy wasn't right in the head at the end, and now you're seeing Tyler's ghost in town. It's not healthy. If only it were just a ghost." "I gotta go, Mom. Cattle need tending." It was my standard excuse to end difficult conversations. "Love you." "Love you too, stubborn boy. Just like your daddy." I hung up and leaned against the barn wall, trying to collect my thoughts. Outside, I could hear the distant call of crows. I peered through a crack in the boards and counted 3 on the nearest fence post. Rule 2. If the crows gather on the fence posts in groups of 3, don't go into the fields that day. Too late for that warning. I'd have to cross at least part of the field to get back to the house. I was considering my options when a soft scrabbling sound came from the hayloft above. Mice, probably. We'd had a bad infestation last summer. I grabbed the ancient broom propped in the corner, ready to shoo away whatever was up there. The ladder to the loft creaked under my weight as I climbed. The space above was dim, slats of sunlight cutting through gaps in the roof. The hay was piled in the far corner, golden and sweet-smelling from last season's cut. "All right, you little—" I began, but the words died in my throat as the hay shifted. Not mice, something larger. I froze, broom half raised, as a hand emerged from beneath the hay pile. A human hand, dirt-encrusted, fingers moving in a grotesque beckoning motion. Then an arm, clad in the torn remains of a familiar flannel shirt. My back hit the ladder before I even realized I was retreating. The arm continued to emerge, revealing a shoulder, then a head lifting from beneath the golden strands. Straw clung to matted hair, and the face that turned toward me was Tyler. Another Tyler. This one's eyes were clouded, milky white as if filmed over. Its jaw hung slightly askew, and the skin had a gray pallor beneath the dirt streaking its face. But it was unmistakably my brother's face, a decayed mirror of the thing waiting by the wash house. "Eth, Anne," it croaked, voice like gravel and rust. "Help me." I scrambled backward down the ladder, nearly falling in my haste. My heel caught on the last rung, and I tumbled to the dirt floor as the thing in the loft began dragging itself toward the opening, hay cascading down around it. "Not real," I gasped, pushing myself up. "Not real." But I knew it wasn't that simple. On this land, not real didn't mean not dangerous. I bolted for the barn door, the sound of stiff limbs dragging across wooden boards following me. Outside, I slammed the door shut and jammed the nearby pitchfork through the handles as a makeshift lock. The wood shuddered as something hit it from the inside. Breathing hard, I looked toward the house. The other Tyler, the clean one, the smiling one, was now standing on the porch, watching me with unnerving stillness. The bundle it had brought sat on the railing beside it. I was trapped between two impossibilities, both wearing my brother's face. My phone buzzed. "Dr. Mayfield." "On my way." 45 minutes stay outside. 45 minutes. I needed to avoid both Tylers until then. The thing in the barn had gone quiet, but I didn't trust the silence. The one on the porch raised a hand in greeting, as if we were neighbors passing on a county road. I headed toward the equipment shed instead. It was farther from the house, but offered another exit that led toward the road where Dr. Mayfield would arrive. As I walked, I kept my eyes fixed straight ahead, ignoring the sound of corn stalks rustling despite the still air. Inside the shed, I sagged against the wall next to Dad's old John Deere tractor. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the moleskin again, flipping through the pages, desperately searching for guidance. Nothing about what to do if your missing brother returns in duplicate. The shed door creaked, and I looked up sharply. The cleaner Tyler stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the sunlight. "You're avoiding me," it said, Tyler's voice tinged with something that wasn't quite hurt. "After I came all this way back." "What are you?" I asked, edging along the wall toward the back exit. It stepped inside, glancing around at the farm equipment with mild interest. "I told you, I'm Tyler. Just changed." "There's another one," I said, watching its reaction carefully. "In the barn. Looks like it's been buried." Something flickered across its face. Anger? Fear? "That's not me," it said quickly. "That's a trick. The land plays tricks sometimes. Shows you things you want to see." "I don't want to see my brother half rotten in a hayloft," I countered. It moved toward me and I tensed. "Listen to me, Ethan. I'm the real Tyler. That thing out there, it's what the land sends up sometimes, like a decoy. To confuse people." It reached out, and I flinched away. It dropped its hand, looking wounded. "It's why I came back. To warn you. Why I left that message on the tree. If you carve that message, what does Rule 13 mean? Burn what he brings. It's not about me, it insisted. It's about the others, the false returns. They bring things up from below, dangerous things. It gestured vaguely toward the house. That bundle I brought is protection, ancient protection. I didn't believe it, but I needed to keep it talking until Mayfield arrived. Protection from what? Its expression turned solemn. From what's under the farm. The things Dad woke up when he started making those offerings. It moved to the tractor, running a hand along the dusty metal. He was trying to get me back, but he did it wrong. Made a door instead of a key. That tracked with what I remembered of Dad's last months, the increasingly bizarre rituals, the blood sacrifices, the muttering in languages no Henderson had any business knowing. "What's in the bundle?" I asked. It smiled, pleased I was showing interest. "Seeds, special seeds. Plant them at the corners of the property, and they'll seal the boundaries. Keep the underneath things from fully crossing over." It looked at me earnestly. "I've learned things, Ethan. How to survive down there. How to fight back." A sudden commotion outside drew both our attention. The barn door was open now, and the decayed Tyler was dragging itself across the yard, leaving a trail of disturbed earth in its wake. It moved with horrible determination toward the house. "See?" the Tyler beside me said urgently. "It's going for the bundle. It knows the seeds will stop it." It grabbed my arm, its touch unnaturally cold through my shirt. "We need to get there first." Its grip was strong, too strong, as it pulled me toward the shed's main door. Outside, the sun seemed suddenly dimmer, the air heavier with humidity and the smell of turned earth. The withered Tyler had reached the porch steps, pulling itself up painfully. "Wait," I said, digging in my heels. "Rule 13. Burn what he brings. Don't wait. Don't question. Don't look inside. We should wait for Doctor Mayfield. He knows about the rules. He can help us." The Tyler holding my arm went still. "Mayfield? The professor?" Its voice had changed, hardened. "You called him?" "He's helped me understand the rules before," I said carefully. Its fingers dug into my arm painfully. "That old fool doesn't understand anything." The facade was slipping now, its Mississippi drawl fading, replaced by something older, deeper. "He only knows what's in his books. I've seen the truth. Been below." On the porch, the decayed Tyler had reached the bundle. Its ruined hands scrambled at the wrappings. "Stop it," the Tyler beside me hissed, suddenly releasing me and bolting toward the house. "Don't open that." I stood frozen, caught between following and running the other way. In the distance, a cloud of dust announced a vehicle approaching on the long dirt drive. Dr. Mayfield. On the porch, the two Tylers collided in a grotesque tangle of limbs, one supernaturally strong, the other fueled by single-minded purpose. The bundle tumbled from the railing, hitting the ground with a soft thud. The wrapping came loose and something dark spilled out onto the sun-baked earth. Not seeds. Something that wriggled and squirmed, black and glistening in the midday sun. Something that began to burrow into the ground with alarming speed. I ran toward the house, Rule 13 screaming in my mind. Dr. Mayfield's ancient Volvo skidded to a stop in a cloud of Mississippi dust. The 68-year-old professor moved with surprising agility for his age, vaulting out of the car with a leather satchel clutched to his chest. His gray beard was wild and uncombed, eyes wide behind wire-rimmed glasses, as he took in the scene before him. "Ethan, get back!" he shouted, rushing toward me. On the porch, the two Tylers were locked in a struggle that defied natural movement. The cleaner one had pinned the decayed version against the railing, but the withered thing was surprisingly strong, its skeletal fingers clawing at the other's face. Where they made contact, the skin seemed to ripple and peel away, revealing something dark and slick underneath. "What in God's name?" Mayfield muttered, coming to a halt beside me. His eyes dropped to the scattered contents of the bundle, and he cursed in what sounded like Latin. "Those aren't seeds," I said unnecessarily. "No." Mayfield reached into his satchel and pulled out a glass jar filled with clear liquid. "They're eggs. We need to burn them now, before they hatch completely." He unscrewed the lid, and the sharp smell of kerosene hit my nostrils. Without hesitation, he doused the squirming mass on the ground, then pulled out an antique Zippo lighter. "Wait!" the cleaner Tyler shouted, momentarily distracted from its fight. "You don't understand what you're doing." That split second of inattention was enough. The decayed Tyler surged upward with unnatural strength, driving its opponent backward. Both tumbled off the porch, hitting the ground with a sickening thud just yards from where we stood. Mayfield flicked the lighter. The kerosene caught with a whoosh, blue flames racing across the writhing black mass. The things, eggs or seeds or whatever unholy spawn they were, began to pop and sizzle, releasing a stench like burning hair and rotten meat. Both Tylers screamed in unison, a sound that clawed at my eardrums. The cleaner one broke free of the struggle and lunged toward us, its face contorted with rage. "You can't interfere," it snarled, its voice no longer anything like my brother's. "The cycle must continue." Mayfield stepped in front of me, surprisingly steady. "Back to the underneath, Skinwalker," he commanded, reaching into his satchel again. This time he withdrew a small cloth bag tied with red string. "You have no power here if we know what you are." The thing wearing Tyler's face hesitated, its eyes fixed on the bag. It hissed, an animal sound no human throat should make. "Ethan," Mayfield said calmly, never taking his eyes off the creature. "Go to my car. Front seat. There's a shotgun loaded with special shells." I backed away, unwilling to turn my back on the scene. The decayed Tyler had pulled itself into a sitting position, watching the confrontation with milky eyes. It looked oddly calm now, almost satisfied as the fire consumed what had spilled from the bundle. When I returned with the shotgun, Mayfield took it with practiced ease. The barrel was etched with symbols similar to those on the rules tree. "Last chance," he told the cleaner Tyler thing. "Return below willingly, or I send you back the hard way." It laughed, a sound like gravel shifting underground. "You think you understand the rules, old man? You've only read about them. I've lived them." It spread its arms. "This land was ours long before the first corn grew here, before the first humans set foot in this valley." "Professor," I said urgently, watching as the thing's skin began to ripple more violently. "What is it?" "They have many names," Mayfield replied, raising the shotgun. "Skinwalker is close enough. They're ancient, from before the continent was settled. Some tribes believed they were guardians of the underworld, or messengers between worlds." "We are neither guardian nor messenger," the thing said, its voice now a chorus of discordant tones. "We are the hungry ones, the waiting ones." Its gaze fixed on me. "And your family invited us in, Ethan Henderson. Your great-grandfather made the first pact. Your father renewed it, trying to save your brother." "The rules," I said, understanding dawning. "They're not for protection. They're terms of a deal." Mayfield nodded grimly. "A deal your ancestors made to ensure abundant crops, even in the worst years. Payment for prosperity." "Tyler was the payment," I whispered. "Dad tried to get him back, and offered himself instead," the Skinwalker finished. "Such devotion, such foolishness." Its smile stretched inhumanly wide, But the land requires more now. The hunger grows. Behind it, the decayed Tyler had begun to move again, crawling toward us with lurching movements. But there was purpose in its milky eyes, determination in its ruined face. "What does it want?" I asked Mayfield, unable to look away from my brother's doppelgangers. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever it is, we can't let it have it." He leveled the shotgun at the cleaner Tyler. "Step back, Ethan." I moved behind him, but my eyes were drawn to the decayed Tyler, now just yards away. It had rolled onto its back, staring up at the sky. Its lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. The shotgun blast shattered the afternoon quiet. The cleaner Tyler staggered backward, black ichor spraying from its chest. It screamed, a sound like metal tearing, as its form began to warp and shift. Tyler's features melted away, revealing something tall and spindly, with too many joints and glistening obsidian skin. "The salt works!" Mayfield shouted triumphantly, pumping the shotgun for another round. Before he could fire again, the ground beneath our feet shuddered. A long, groaning sound rose from deep below, like the earth itself was waking up. Cracks appeared in the sun-baked soil, spreading outward from where the eggs had burned. The skinwalker laughed again, even as its body continued to dissolve into something inhuman. "Too late, Professor. They've already hatched below. The offering has been made." The decayed Tyler had begun to sink into the ground, not struggling but surrendering, dirt flowing over its limbs like water. "The fire," Mayfield said urgently. "It triggered something. We need to get off this property now." Another tremor shook the ground, stronger this time. From the cornfield came an unsettling rustling, too uniform to be wind. The stalks began to bend, all facing toward us like an audience turning to watch a performance. "What about the rules?" I asked, backing toward Mayfield's car. "If we break them..." "The rules are void," he said grimly. "The contract is being renegotiated." The skinwalker was fully transformed now, a towering black figure with limbs like twisted branches and a face that hurt to look at directly. It stepped toward the cornfield, movements fluid despite its ungainly shape. "Watch for the new rules, Ethan Henderson," it called back, its voice echoing strangely. "They'll appear when the soil drinks its fill. Follow them, or join your brother and father below." It disappeared into the corn, the golden stalks seeming to welcome it, parting and closing like a curtain. Where the decayed Tyler had been, only a Tyler-shaped depression remained in the soil, rapidly filling with dark, wet earth that hadn't seen sunlight in centuries. "Get in the car," Mayfield ordered, backing up beside me. "We need distance to figure this out." As we sped down the dirt drive, I looked back at the farmhouse that had been in my family for generations. Dark clouds were gathering overhead, unnaturally fast, spiraling like water down a drain. The corn swayed in patterns too deliberate to be natural, vast golden waves rippling outward from the center of the property. From the oak tree, a murder of crows took flight, their black wings blotting out portions of the sky. "Where are we going?" I asked, clutching the door handle as Mayfield took the turn onto County Road 813 too fast. "Somewhere safe to regroup," he said, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "I have a colleague in Tupelo who specializes in soil anomalies, agricultural curses." "Agricultural curses," I repeated numbly. "That's what's happening to my farm? A curse?" Mayfield's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Not exactly. More like an awakening. Something your family has been keeping dormant with those rules for generations." He glanced at me. "Tell me exactly what the new rule said again." "Rule 13. When he returns, burn what he brings. Don't wait, don't question, "Don't look inside." "And we followed it," he mused. "We burned what it brought, so why?" The realization hit me like a physical blow. "There were two of them," I said, the horror of it sinking in. "We burned what one brought, but what about the other?" Mayfield's face went ashen. "The decayed one. Did it bring anything?" I thought back to the barn, the hayloft, the thing dragging itself from beneath the hay. "I don't know. I ran before I could see." The professor made a hard U-turn, tires skidding on gravel. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Going back," he said grimly. "Whatever it brought, we need to find it and burn it before it's too late." As we raced back toward the farm, the sky continued to darken, and I could have sworn I heard my brother's voice calling my name on the wind. The farmhouse was transforming before our eyes as we approached. The white clapboard siding had taken on a sickly yellowish tinge, like jaundiced skin. The windows reflected nothing, dark voids that seemed to swallow light rather than let it pass through. And the oak tree, the rules tree, was convulsing, its ancient branches writhing as if in pain, leaves falling in clumps to carpet the earth below. "My God," Mayfield breathed as he brought the Volvo to a stop 100 yards from the house. "It's happening faster than I expected." Rain had begun to fall, fat droplets that hit the windshield with audible thumps. I wiped condensation from the inside of the window and squinted at the farm I'd known all my life, trying to reconcile the wrongness before me. "We need to check the barn," I said, reaching for the door handle. Mayfield caught my wrist. "Wait. We need a plan and protection." He reached into the back seat for his leather satchel. "These skinwalkers, they're just messengers, servants. What's waking up underneath your land is much older, much more dangerous." "Then what are we even doing here?" I demanded. "Shouldn't we be calling the National Guard or something?" He gave me a pitying look. "And tell them what?" "That ancient pre-human entities are emerging from beneath a cornfield in Chickasaw County?" He shook his head. "Number this is between your family and what lives in the soil, has been for generations. But why us? Why the Hendersons? Location most likely. This land sits at a confluence of underground waterways, the aquifer that feeds into the Tombigbee River system." He began pulling items from his satchel. Small cloth bags, like the one he'd threatened the skinwalker with. Glass vials of various powders. A silver knife with a bone handle. Such places have always been thin spots between worlds. Your great-grandfather Joseph didn't get this land cheap because of the Depression. He got it cheap because the previous owners kept dying. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming on the car roof like impatient fingers. Through the deluge, I could see the barn door swinging open and closed, buffeted by unnatural winds. "So, how do we stop this?" I asked, eyeing the items Mayfield was arranging on the dashboard. "We don't," he said simply. "Not permanently. The best we can do is reinstate the old boundaries, re-establish the rules." He handed me one of the cloth bags. "Keep this in your pocket. Salt, iron filings, and tobacco. It won't stop them, but it'll slow them down if they get too close." "And the shotgun?" "Rock salt shells, blessed by a Choctaw medicine man I know up near Philadelphia. He pumped it once. Won't kill them, but it'll disrupt their physical form in this world." "What about regular bullets?" I asked, thinking of my own shotgun, likely still leaning against the kitchen wall. "Useless. Might as well throw pebbles." He looked at me gravely. "Ready?" No, I wasn't ready. I wanted to be anywhere but here. Wanted to be back in my kitchen this morning, before any Tyler had appeared, when the rules were just strange guidelines I followed out of habit and superstition. But I nodded anyway. We made a dash for the barn through the unnatural downpour, The rain felt wrong on my skin. Too heavy, too warm, like being pelted with blood temperature water. The ground had turned to mud that sucked at our boots, reluctant to let go with each step. The barn door slammed open as we approached, not from wind, but from something inside yanking it wide. Mayfield raised the shotgun, pushing me slightly behind him with his other hand. "Remember, whatever it is, it's not your brother," he warned. The barn's interior was abnormally dark for midday. The air inside felt thick, humid, with the smell of fresh-turned soil and something else. A sweet, rotting odor like overripe fruit. Our flashlight beams cut through the gloom, casting long shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. "The hayloft," I said quietly, pointing upward. "That's where I saw it earlier." Mayfield nodded and moved forward, his footsteps oddly muffled on the dirt floor. I followed close behind, one hand clutching the cloth bag in my pocket. It felt warm against my palm, almost alive. The ladder to the loft was broken now. The middle rungs splintered outward as if something had exploded through them from above. Mayfield gestured toward a stack of feed bags. "We can climb up that way," he whispered. As we moved toward the improvised stairway, a sound came from the loft. A soft, rhythmic scraping, like someone dragging a rake through dry leaves. Then, a low humming, tuneless and discordant. I recognized the melody with a jolt of dread. It was "Go to Sleep, Little Baby," the lullaby Mom used to sing to Tyler and me when we were small. "Professor," I began, but he silenced me with a gesture. We climbed the feed bags cautiously, Mayfield leading with the shotgun. As our heads cleared the loft floor, the smell intensified. That sickly sweet rot undercut with fresh earth. The decayed Tyler sat cross-legged in the center of the loft, rocking slightly. It wasn't alone. Arrayed before it was a line of small objects that glinted dully in our flashlight beams. As we climbed fully into the loft, I could see what they were. Cornhusk dolls, a dozen at least, each the size of my hand. They were crude things, fashioned from dried husks and bound with what looked like human hair in various colors. Each had a face drawn in what appeared to be dried blood. "Shit," Mayfield breathed, raising the shotgun. The decayed Tyler looked up at us, milky eyes somehow managing to focus. It smiled, that ruined face stretching in a mockery of my brother's grin. "Too late," it said, voice surprisingly clear despite its deteriorated state. "They're already singing." As if on cue, a faint, high-pitched keening sound emanated from the dolls. It raised the hairs on my arms, a sound just on the edge of human, but fundamentally wrong. Mayfield stepped forward. "Ethan, get the kerosene." I fumbled in my pocket for the small flask he'd given me in the car, but before I could retrieve it, the decayed Tyler moved with shocking speed. It lunged across the loft, not toward us but toward the dolls, scooping them up in its dirt-encrusted hands. "Mine," it growled, clutching them to its chest. "Father's gift." "Father?" I repeated, cold dread settling in my stomach. "Dad made these?" "Your father began the process," Mayfield said grimly, keeping the shotgun trained on the thing wearing Tyler's decayed face. "These are vessels, invitation tokens for what lives below to come through." The thing that had been Tyler nodded eagerly. Dad knew. Dad learned the old ways, tried to trade himself for me. It stroked one of the dolls with a blackened finger, but the hungry ones wanted more. Always more. The whole farm, I realized. They want the entire Henderson bloodline, and the land. "Smart brother," the thing said, rocking faster now. "Always were the smart one. Tyler was the strong one, though. Strong enough to come back. Parts of him, anyway." It grinned, dirt falling from its cracked lips, Parts of him still down there. Parts of Dad, too. The doll's keening grew louder, more insistent. Outside, the rain hammered against the barn roof like it was trying to break through. "Professor, what do we do?" I asked, unable to take my eyes off the grotesque parody of my brother. Mayfield's face was grim. "We burn them. All of them. Including that." The decayed Tyler cackled. "Can't burn me. I'm just dirt now. Dirt and memories." It clutched the dolls tighter. "But these are doorways. Little doors. Dad made them, but I named them." Its voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "Want to know their names?" "Now, Ethan," Mayfield urged. "The kerosene." I finally managed to pull the flask free and unscrewed the cap. The sharp smell cut through the rot-sweet stench of the loft. The thing wearing Tyler's decomposed face hissed at the smell. "No!" it shrieked, scrambling backward. "They're almost ready! Almost awake!" I hesitated, flask half raised. Despite everything, it still wore my brother's face. Still spoke with something of his voice. "Tyler, if you're still in there somewhere." "Don't," Mayfield warned. "It's using your emotions against you. That's not Tyler anymore." The thing smiled again, reading my hesitation. "Remember fishing at Cooper's Creek, Ethan? Remember when you fell through the ice and I pulled you out? Remember how cold you were?" Its head tilted at that wrong angle again. "I remember, brother." Memories flooded back. Tyler at 14, dragging my 10-year-old self from the frozen creek, wrapping me in his coat, carrying me a mile back to the truck, his voice saying, "I got you, little brother. I got you." "Ethan." Mayfield's voice cut through the memory. "It's reading your mind. Focus." The decayed Tyler was closer now, though I hadn't seen it move. Close enough that I could smell the grave earth embedded in its skin. Close enough to see that what I'd thought were its eyes were actually empty sockets filled with churning soil. "Just a drop of your blood," it whispered, "on each doll. That's all we need. Then Tyler can really come home. Dad, too." My hand shook, the kerosene sloshing in its container. "Can you really bring them back?" "Ethan!" Mayfield shouted. The thing nodded eagerly. "Just a drop. Small price. The land is fair." For one insane moment, I considered it. What was a drop of blood if it meant seeing Tyler again? Seeing Dad? The real ones, not these twisted echoes? Then I remembered Rule 13. When he returns, burn what he brings. Don't wait. Don't question. Don't look inside. My brother, my real brother, had carved that warning. The last thing he'd done for me. I uncapped the kerosene and flung it at the dolls clutched in the thing's arms. It shrieked, a sound no human throat could produce, as the liquid soaked the cornhusk figures. I fumbled for matches, but Mayfield was faster, flicking his Zippo and tossing it in one smooth motion. The flame caught with a whoosh. The decayed Tyler wailed, not in pain, but in fury and defeat, as the dolls blazed in its arms. It didn't drop them, instead clutching them tighter as the fire spread to its own desiccated form. "Run!" Mayfield yelled, pushing me toward the edge of the loft. "The whole barn's going to go up." We scrambled down the mountain of feed banks as the fire roared above us. The thing that wasn't Tyler continued to wail, its voice multiplying, becoming a chorus of screams that seemed to come from the burning dolls themselves. Outside, the unnatural rain had stopped abruptly. The air was still, heavy with anticipation. We sprinted away from the barn just as the roof caught fire, flames reaching skyward in defiance of physics. The ground rumbled beneath our feet. From the cornfield came a sound like thousands of stalks being ripped from the earth simultaneously. A great wind arose, bending the corn flat in a perfect circle around the property. "Back to the car," Mayfield urged. but my eyes were drawn to the rules tree. The ancient oak was changing before my eyes. The bark flowed like wax, reshaping itself. Where Rule 13 had been carved, new words were forming, the wood pushing outward to create fresh symbols. The new rules, I breathed. It said there would be new rules. Behind us, the barn collapsed in a shower of sparks and burning debris. The fire didn't spread to the surrounding grass, instead burning with unnatural intensity, in a perfect boundary defined by the barn's foundation. Mayfield grabbed my arm. "We need to get clear. Whatever happens next, we don't want to be here for it." As we ran for his car, I glanced back one last time at the burning barn, the writhing oak, the farmhouse with its darkened windows. For a moment, I thought I saw two figures standing on the porch, Dad and Tyler, watching us leave. Then the ground opened up beneath the oak tree, and darkness welled up like blood from a wound. Mayfield's Volvo fishtailed on the muddy road as we sped away from the farm. In the rearview mirror, an impossible darkness spread behind us, swallowing the burning barn and encroaching on the farmhouse. It wasn't smoke or storm clouds. It was absence, a void in the fabric of daylight itself. "What's happening?" I gasped, twisting in my seat to stare at the receding property. "The transition," Mayfield said grimly, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "The land is renegotiating its terms." "With who?" "There's no one left to make deals with." "There's you." His eyes met mine briefly. Last of the Henderson bloodline on that soil. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Whatever lived beneath the farm, whatever had taken Tyler and Dad, now wanted me to be the caretaker of its new covenant. "I need to see those new rules," I said, the decision crystallizing in my mind with sudden clarity. Mayfield braked so hard we skidded sideways. "Are you insane? That place is tearing itself apart. If I don't know the rules, I can't follow them. And if I can't follow them..." I let the thought hang, but we both knew what it meant. The thing under the farm would keep coming, keep sending its skinwalker messengers. It would find me wherever I ran. The professor studied my face for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "We don't go all the way in. Just close enough to read what's on that tree. Then we leave, immediately, and figure out our next move from somewhere safe." "Deal." My heart hammered against my ribs, part terror and part grim resolution. Mayfield turned the car around, driving slowly now as we approached the property line. The darkness had stabilized, forming a dome over the central part of the farm. The cornfield's outer edges remained untouched, stalks standing eerily still in the windless air. We parked at the cattle gate and continued on foot, Mayfield clutching his shotgun and me carrying a flashlight that seemed feeble against the unnatural gloom ahead. The ground felt wrong under my boots, too soft in some places, unnaturally hard in others, as if the soil itself was being remade. "This is as far as I go," Mayfield announced when we reached the edge of the darkness. It loomed before us like a wall, not quite solid but dense enough that the rules tree was just a dim silhouette within it. I swallowed hard. "I need to get closer. I can't read it from here." Mayfield gripped my shoulder. "Then I'm coming with you." "No." I shook my head firmly. "This is Henderson business. Always has been. You've done enough, Professor." "Ethan, if I don't come back in 15 minutes, get the hell out of here. Call my mother and tell her to stay away." I managed a weak smile. "Consider it my fieldwork contribution to your research." Before he could argue further, I stepped forward into the darkness. It parted around me like heavy curtains, cool and thick against my skin. The sensation wasn't unpleasant, more like wading into deep water. Sound dampened immediately, Mayfield's objections fading to nothing after just a few steps. Inside the darkness, the farm had transformed. The ground undulated gently, as if breathing. The farmhouse still stood, but its architecture had shifted, angles subtly wrong, windows placed where no windows should be. The collapsed barn was now just a perfect circle of ash, untouched by wind. And the rules tree. The ancient oak had split down the middle, creating an archway of living wood. Its branches twisted upward and inward, forming a canopy that resembled skeletal hands clasped in prayer. The trunk glowed with faint amber light, illuminating the symbols carved into its bark. I approached cautiously, flashlight beam playing across the newly formed words. They were in English now, no translation needed, carved deep into the living wood. Fresh sap oozed from the cuts like amber tears. Rule 1. A Henderson must always work the land. Absence longer than 3 days requires blood payment upon return. Rule 2. Daily offering at dusk. Food placed on the flat stone by the well. Meat on Sundays. Rule 3. No trespassers permitted after dark. What happens to them is not your concern. Rule 4. If the corn sings, remain indoors until dawn. Rule 5. When red flowers bloom in the field, harvest them before sunset and burn the petals. Scatter the ash along the property line. Rule 6. Never strike the soil in anger. Tools that pierce the earth must be blessed with oil and whiskey first. Rule 7. If you find animal carcasses arranged in patterns, do not disturb them. Photograph their placement and burn the images at midnight. Rule 8. The well belongs to what lives below. Drink from it only on the new moon and leave payment in coins or blood. Rule 9. If someone wearing a familiar face comes from the field, verify their nature with salt and iron before speaking their name. Rule 10. Children born on this land belong to the soil. They must be registered in the family Bible, and blood placed on the roots of the tree within 1 day of birth. Rule 11. Keep the scarecrow facing where the sun dies. If it turns, correct it immediately and leave a sacrifice of tobacco. Rule 12. The center of the southern field is forbidden ground. Mark it with red flags and never harvest there. Rule 13. When the ground trembles 3 times in one night, a binding must be renewed. Consult the black box in the attic. My hand shook as I copied the rules into my notebook. The implications were clear. This wasn't just a set of superstitious guidelines. It was a contract of ownership. The land was claiming its dominion over the Henderson bloodline, demanding a caretaker for whatever lived beneath it. A soft rustling drew my attention from the tree. The darkness ahead was shifting, parting to reveal the center of what had once been our cornfield. The stalks had been flattened in a perfect circle, creating a clearing that hadn't existed this morning. In the center stood a figure. It wasn't Tyler this time, or Dad. It was smaller, feminine, dressed in clothes that seemed from another era. A simple cotton dress that might have been worn in the 1930s. As I squinted through the gloom, recognition dawned with a surge of horror. The old photograph in the family album. The faded wedding picture on Grandpa's mantle. Great-Grandma Rose Henderson, Joseph's wife, who according to family lore had died of fever the same year they acquired the farm. She stood impossibly in the clearing, her face placid, hands folded at her waist. "Hello, Ethan," she called, her voice carrying unnaturally through the heavy air. "You've read the terms. Do you accept?" I took an involuntary step backward. "Who are you?" "You know who I am." Her smile was gentle, grandmotherly. "I've been waiting a long time for you to come home." "My great-grandmother died in 1932. "Did she?" Rose tilted her head, the gesture unsettlingly familiar. the same gesture the Tyler things had made. Joseph told everyone I died, easier that way, but the truth is, I was the first payment. She spread her arms, encompassing the transformed farm around us. The land needed a mother. A chill ran through me. What are you talking about? Joseph made a deal for this land, for prosperity when others starved. But the soil wanted more than tobacco and whiskey. Her form flickered slightly, like a television with poor reception. It wanted family, Hendersons, roots that would run as deep as the corn. I thought of Tyler and Dad, both taken by the land, of the rules that had bound my family for generations. And now it wants me, I said, understanding dawning. Rose's expression softened. Not yet. It needs a caretaker first, someone to tend it, feed it, help it grow. She gestured to the tree. That's what the new covenant offers. Service instead of sacrifice. For now. And if I refuse? The darkness around us deepened, pressure building in my ears like descending too quickly underwater. Rose's form flickered again, her gentle features momentarily replaced by something ancient and hungry. Then it will hunt you, Ethan Henderson. Hunt you and your mother and any children you might have. The bargain was made with blood. It cannot be unmade. My mouth went dry. What do I have to do? Rose smiled again, relief evident in her expression. Accept the rules. Live on the land. Make the offerings. She extended her hand. And visit us sometimes down below. Your father and brother miss you. They're alive? Hope surged irrationally in my chest. In a manner of speaking, her eyes, I noticed now, reflected no light. They helped the corn grow strong. The implication turned my hope to ash. I looked back toward where I'd left Mayfield, but could see nothing through the darkness. I need time, I said, to think. Rose's expression hardened. You have until midnight. Return by then with your answer or the land will come for you. She began to fade, her form dissolving into the darkness. We're family, Ethan. Family belongs together. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with the split tree and its new commandments. The darkness thinned slightly, enough that I could make out the path back to where Mayfield waited. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye. A flash of color in the ashen circle that had been our barn. I approached cautiously, kneeling to examine what looked like a small plant pushing up through the ash. Not corn, but something with a deep red stalk and glossy black leaves. It pulsed slightly, as if in time with a heartbeat. The beginning of something new taking root. I hurried back through the darkness, which parted more easily now, as if recognizing me as its own. Mayfield was pacing by his car, shotgun raised when he saw my emerging shape. Ethan! Thank God. He lowered the weapon. What happened? What did you see? I held out my notebook, open to the page with the 13 new rules. We have until midnight to decide, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, whether I become the new keeper of Henderson Farm. Behind us, a chorus of whispers rose from the cornfield. Voices that might have been the wind in the stalks, or might have been my family calling me home. We need to get out of here, Mayfield said, ushering me into his car with trembling hands. Now! I climbed in mechanically, my mind still processing what I'd seen. The car lurched forward, tires spinning in mud before catching and propelling us away from the transformed farm. The dome of darkness receded in the side mirror, contracting like a living thing, settling in for a long wait. My God, Mayfield muttered, repeatedly glancing at the notebook in my hands. This goes beyond anything in the literature. A full intergenerational pact with whatever that is. She said it was a mother. I replied distantly, that the land needed a mother. Who said? My great-grandmother, or something wearing her face. I described my encounter with Rose, watching Mayfield's expression shift from academic interest to horror. Skinwalkers can assume many forms, he said, taking a sharp turn onto Highway 15. They choose shapes that will have emotional resonance with their targets. This was different from the Tyler things, I insisted. More solid, more real, like she belonged there. Mayfield fell silent, driving with grim concentration. We were heading south, away from Tupelo and Belle Prairie, away from Mom. Where are we going? I asked. My colleague in Oxford, Dr. Elena Yazzie. She's Navajo, teaches indigenous studies at Ole Miss, but specializes in land-based spiritual practices. He glanced at me. If anyone can help us understand what we're dealing with, it's her. I nodded absently, staring at the list of rules I'd copied down. My handwriting looked shaky, foreign, like someone else had written them. It's my decision, isn't it? I finally said. Whether to accept or refuse. Mayfield's hands tightened on the wheel. Technically, yes. But Ethan, you can't possibly be considering, what choice do I have? The words came out sharper than intended. You heard what I told you. If I refuse, it comes after me, after Mom, after any children I might have someday. I stared out the window at the passing Mississippi landscape, so normal, so mundane compared to what I'd just witnessed. At least if I accept, I contain it. Keep it bound to that land. You'd be sacrificing yourself. Like my father did, like Tyler. I thought of Rose's words. They helped the corn grow strong. A chill ran through me. Maybe there's another way. A way to break the pact completely. That's what we need Elena for, Mayfield agreed, relieved I wasn't immediately surrendering. Her people have dealt with land spirits for centuries. She might know rituals, methods we haven't considered. We drove in silence for a while, the car's air conditioning fighting a losing battle against the Mississippi summer heat. My phone buzzed. Mom calling again. I let it go to voicemail. What could I possibly tell her? I've been studying these rules, Mayfield said eventually. There's something unusual about them. You mean besides being delivered by ancient entities living under my farm? He managed a thin smile. I mean their structure. These aren't just prohibitions or requirements. Look at Rule 10, about children born on the land, and 13, about the black box in the attic. I frowned. What about them? They're administrative, procedural, like an operations manual. He tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the steering wheel. Most supernatural pacts involve simple exchanges, this offering for that blessing. But this is more like a job description, a transfer of duties. Caretaker, I murmured, remembering Rose's words. It needs a caretaker. Exactly, which means whatever is below your farm isn't just a mindless hunger. It's an intelligence with specific needs that must be managed. His eyes lit up with the enthusiasm of an academic onto something new. That might give us leverage. Oxford was still an hour away. The dashboard clock read 4:47 p.m., 7 hours until my midnight deadline. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. Driving down tomorrow. No arguments. Love you. Time was running out. Pull over, I said suddenly. What? We need to... Pull over now. Mayfield complied, guiding the Volvo onto the shoulder. We were in the middle of nowhere, fields stretching on either side of the highway. I got out, needing air, needing space to think. The professor followed, concern etched on his weathered face. Ethan, I know this is overwhelming, but you don't know anything, I said, not unkindly. This is my family's burden. Has been for generations, and now I have to decide whether to continue that tradition or risk unleashing whatever's down there. We'll find another way. He placed a hand on my shoulder. There's always another option. But I wasn't convinced. Great-Grandpa Joseph had made a deal during desperate times. Dad had tried to break it by offering himself in Tyler's place. Both choices had led to the same outcome. The land growing stronger, hungrier, more demanding. I looked up at the clear sky, so at odds with the supernatural darkness we'd left behind. If I refuse, what happens to Tyler? To Dad? Are they really conscious down there? Aware? Mayfield's silence was answer enough. My phone rang again. This time, I answered. Ethan Henderson, I've been calling you for hours. Mom's voice was tight with worry. Is everything all right? A lump formed in my throat. Yeah, Mom. Just busy with farm stuff. The lie tasted bitter. Well, I'm coming down tomorrow. Susan's lending me her car. I'm going to help you pack up that house once and for all. Mom, No arguments, Ethan. I'm not losing you to that place, too. Her voice cracked slightly. I'll be there by noon. We'll have lunch at Latham's Diner in town first, okay? Their chicken fried steak was always your favorite. The mundane normalcy of her plans struck me like a physical blow. Lunch at Latham's. As if the world hadn't just split open and revealed ancient horrors beneath my family farm. Sounds good, Mom, I managed. See you tomorrow. I hung up and turned to Mayfield, decision crystallizing. We're going back to the farm. Ethan, no. Not to accept the pact. Not yet, anyway. I pulled out my notebook, flipping to the 13th rule. We need to find this black box in the attic. If there's any hope of understanding what we're dealing with, breaking this cycle, it's there. Mayfield studied my face, then nodded reluctantly. If we go back, we need protection. More than I have in my bag of tricks. He checked his watch. We can make a stop in Pontotoc. I know someone there who might help. Mrs. Olivia Blackwood lived in a modest shotgun house on the outskirts of Pontotoc. At 87, her hands were gnarled with arthritis, but her dark eyes were sharp as she welcomed us onto her porch. Alton Mayfield, she said, voice rich as molasses. Been a long time since you darkened my door. Hello, Liv. Mayfield's demeanor had changed. More respectful, less academic. This is Ethan Henderson. We need your help. Something flickered in her eyes at my name. Henderson? Joseph Henderson's boy? Great-grandson, I clarified. She nodded slowly. The cursed farm out by Belle Prairie. You've come about the hunger beneath. I stared at her, speechless. Mrs. Blackwood gestured us inside. Her home smelled of herbs and old books, walls lined with shelves holding jars of dried plants, bones, and stones. She settled into a worn armchair and fixed me with a penetrating gaze. My grandmother was a midwife, delivered Rose Henderson's stillborn son in 1934. She reached for a tin of tobacco on the side table, methodically rolling a cigarette. Except the baby wasn't stillborn. It was wrong. Had too many fingers. Eyes like a calf's, all wet and dark. I shuddered, thinking of Rule 10. Children born on this land belong to the soil. Joseph buried it under the big oak tree. Told everyone Rose died of childbed fever, but folks knew better. She lit her cigarette, smoke curling around her wrinkled face. Some things can't be hidden in small places like this. Mrs. Blackwood, I began. Something's happening at the farm. The rules have changed, and I have until midnight to decide whether to become its caretaker. She didn't look surprised. It's been waiting for you. Last of the blood. Last chance to continue the line. How do you know all this? I asked. My family's been in this county longer than there's been a county. Some stories get passed down. She tapped ash into a small ceramic dish. Some burdens, too. "We need protection," Mayfield said. "We're going back to the farm to look for a black box mentioned in the new rules. Something in the attic." Mrs. Blackwood's eyes widened slightly. "The Covenant box. It still exists? You know of it?" "Stories," she repeated. "Joseph came to my grandmother once, desperate for help. His wife taken, his land growing things that shouldn't grow, his livestock born with human eyes." She rose slowly, moving to a cabinet in the corner. "She gave him something. Told him to put it in a black box with his family Bible. Place it where the roof meets the morning sun." From the cabinet, she withdrew a small cloth pouch and a glass vial filled with reddish oil. "This won't stop what lives below," she warned, handing them to me. "Nothing can, now that it's awake and hungry. But it might give you time, enough to find the box, learn its secrets." "And then what?" I asked, clutching the items. Her weathered face was solemn. "Then you choose, young Henderson. Serve the land or fight it. But know this, no Henderson has ever truly escaped it, not even in death." The sun was setting as we approached Belle Prairie again, casting long shadows across the fields flanking the highway. Mayfield drove slower now, as if reluctant to reach our destination. In my pocket, Mrs. Blackwood's pouch felt warm against my leg. "Are you sure about this?" he asked for the third time. I wasn't. But with Mom arriving tomorrow and midnight approaching, options were running out. "I need to know what's in that box," I said. "What great-grandpa Joseph was trying to do. If there's any way to break this cycle, it'll be there." The farm came into view as we crested a small hill. The dome of darkness had receded, now covering only the central portion of the property. The house stood clearly visible, windows glowing with soft amber light, as if welcoming us home. As we approached the cattle gate, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Parked in front of the porch was a familiar pickup truck. Uncle Ray's old Ford F-150. The same truck Mom would be driving down from Tupelo tomorrow. "Stop," I ordered, dread pooling in my stomach. "Something's wrong." We pulled up behind the truck, its hood still warm. Mayfield readied his shotgun as we approached the house cautiously. The porch light flickered on automatically as we climbed the steps. The front door stood slightly ajar, welcoming us in. From inside came the sound of a woman humming softly, a lullaby I'd known all my life. "Mom?" I called, pushing the door open wider. She sat at the kitchen table, back to us, arranging flowers in a vase. At the sound of my voice, she turned. Her smile was just a little too wide. 6 months have passed since that night. Winter has settled over Belle Prairie, the corn long harvested, the fields lying dormant under a thin blanket of frost rare from Mississippi. The Henderson farm looks peaceful in the pale December sunlight, picturesque even, with smoke curling from the chimney and fresh paint on the weathered clapboards. I stand on the porch every evening at dusk, placing the daily offering on the flat stone by the well. Meat on Sundays, as the rules require. I've become meticulous about following all 13 commandments carved into the oak tree, which has healed its split trunk, but retained its transformed shape. The black box from the attic sits on my nightstand now, open and empty. Its contents: Great-Grandpa Joseph's journal, the original pact written in faded ink on yellowed parchment, and the strange obsidian amulet are carefully preserved in the family Bible. I read a page from the journal each night before bed, learning the history of what lies beneath our land, learning its true name. Dr. Mayfield visits occasionally, taking notes for the book he's writing, a scholarly work on agricultural folk practices in the Deep South that will never mention what really lives under the Henderson farm. We both know some truths are better left undocumented. Mom calls from Tupelo every Sunday after church. She doesn't remember driving down that evening, doesn't remember what happened in the kitchen when we found her. Or rather, the thing wearing her face. The salt and iron from Mrs. Blackwood's pouch had worked just as promised, giving us time to find the black box, to learn its secrets, to make my choice. I told Mom I'd decided to keep the farm after all. It's our legacy, I'd explained. I can't just abandon it. She hadn't argued, which still strikes me as odd. But perhaps that's part of the arrangement too. The land ensuring its caretaker remains undisturbed. The red flowers Rule 5 mentioned bloomed in October, their crimson petals stark against the dying corn. I harvested them before sunset, burned them to ash, and walked the property line as instructed, speaking the words I'd found in Joseph's journal. For 3 nights afterward, the ground didn't tremble once. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, I think I hear voices in the fields, Tyler calling my name, Dad humming an old country tune, Rose singing her lullaby. I don't answer. Rule 4 is clear. If the corn sings, remain indoors until dawn. Mrs. Blackwood passed away in her sleep last month. She left me a sealed letter with instructions to open it when the land demands new blood. I've placed it unopened in the black box, next to the worn photo of Jessica, the woman I've been seeing from 2 counties over. She likes the farm, says it has character. She doesn't know about the rules yet. Yesterday, I found the first carcass, a raccoon, arranged in a strange spiral pattern at the edge of the southern field. I photographed it carefully, burned the Polaroid at midnight as Rule 7 demands. The flames burned blue, then green, then a color I have no name for. The Henderson farm prospers under my care. The corn grows taller than any other in the county, even in poor weather. The cattle birth healthy calves, twins more often than not. The soil remains dark and rich, despite never needing fertilizer. And if sometimes that soil seems to shift slightly underfoot, if sometimes the well water runs with something thicker than water before clearing again, if sometimes I glimpse familiar faces watching me from between the corn rows, well, that's the price of prosperity. I am the caretaker now, the last Henderson tending the hungry land, until the next generation takes my place. Jessica doesn't know it yet, but she's carrying twins. I've already cleared space in the family Bible. The soil is waiting.